Hi people, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to quickly share with you some types of men I believe that you shouldn't get married to. I'm not one to actually do these things, but I believe that sometimes it's just good to point people in the right direction, to talk about things that you should watch out for, things that you should be careful about. And I believe that even when it comes to choosing a life partner, there are just some people that you have to be careful about before you give yourself headache and unnecessary trouble. So I would say number one, that of course you shouldn't marry an unbeliever. The Bible is clear about that. There is no gray area when it comes to marrying an unbeliever. The Bible says that you shall not be unequally yoked. So if you're a child of God and you are thinking of getting married, I believe that an unbeliever is not on your list. I believe that you are not considering getting married to someone who is not born again, right? Or are you? So someone who is not born again is not even supposed to be on your list. These days, I see a lot of things. I see things like, he's a Muslim, but I love him. I want to marry him. Can I go ahead? I see things like, he's not really a child of God like that, too, but I love him. Can I go ahead? I believe that when you even ask this question, it shows us the kind of person that you are. Because for a serious child of God who has a purpose for her life, she knows from the onset that there has to be alignment, and she knows what the Bible says about certain things. So I believe that that's why I talk a lot about working on yourself first, because you most likely will make choices based on your level of awareness and based on your relationship with God. So an unbeliever, someone who is not born again, is not someone that you should consider for marriage, because you are going to have a lot of issues. You can't be wiser than God. When God says don't be unequally yoked, it's because he knows what being unequally yoked is going to cost you. It's going to cause you a lot of issues in your marriage, because the Bible says, can two work together except they agree? Agreement when it comes to your beliefs, when it comes to your convictions, when it comes to your faith is one thing that you shouldn't neglect, because you guys are going to be doing things together. And what usually informs our decisions is our convictions. Our convictions inform our decisions. So you are going to be taking decisions together, and if there is no alignment in your faith, you're going to struggle. A believer is someone who is submitted to God. A believer is someone who would consult God before making decisions and who is led by the Spirit. Someone who is not a believer is not led by the Spirit. As a matter of fact, for someone who is not a believer, the things of the Spirit usually don't make sense. So you're going to have a lot of struggles when it comes to allowing the Spirit to lead you, when it comes to your faith, when it comes to prayer, when it comes to making decisions that are Christ-centered, when it comes to raising your children and things like that. Unless, of course, you are not so big on your faith, on obeying God, and on pursuing his divine purpose for your life, and on making heaven at last. If your goal is to make heaven at last, then you know that who you choose to get married to is very important. The second kind of man I believe you shouldn't get married to is a man who doesn't fear God. Listen, the Bible says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. For a man who doesn't fear God, anything goes. In fact, I remember the story of Joseph when Joseph was in Egypt and he was being tempted by Potiphar's wife. The reasons that Joseph did not yield to that temptation to sleep with Potiphar's wife was not because his parents were there, or because there was someone telling him, Joseph, don't do this. Joseph was far away from his parents, but Joseph feared God. So the fear of God in a man is going to help him to avoid certain things. It's going to help him to resist certain temptations. If this man doesn't have the fear of God, he's going to be trying to do a lot of things out of his own strength, and he's not going to really, have regard for certain things. There are certain things that he will just do because, of course, he doesn't fear God. So you really want to stay away from a man who doesn't have the fear of God. Another thing I would say is you shouldn't marry someone who doesn't submit to authority. This is very important because the Bible says that a man will be the head of the family, but it also says that God is the head of man. So that man should first of all be submitted to God. And that's why I started with it should be a born again Christian, someone who has the fear of God. And obviously, if he's born again, he has a Lord, okay, is submitted to the authority of Christ, which is very important. But apart from that, we have human, authority. We have men that we respect. We have leadership. If this man is full of himself and he doesn't submit to any authority, look at him. Look, in his life. Who is he submitted to? Who is that authority figure that he has in his life that he respects and that he listens to? If you realize that he is a man of his own and doesn't have any authority, he doesn't respect anyone, I would say it's a red flag, because this is probably a man that you can't talk to. This is probably a man who who didn't accept corrections, who didn't accept when he is wrong, or who didn't accept advice. So it has to be a man under authority. It really, really does matter. If not, you are going to find yourself in a very difficult corner where when you talk to him and you are not able to get his attention, or he doesn't listen at all, you wouldn't have anybody that you can go to be of help. Or it also means that man will just be making decisions basically anyhow. This is what I believe. So yeah, a man who is not accountable. Accountability is very important because we are humans and sometimes we can make mistakes. One of the things that I believe keeps us is accountability. And it still goes back to what I was saying about authority. When you have a pastor you are submitted to, and a pastor that you are accountable to, you have people around you that you are accountable to, it helps. But a man who is like a man of his own, he's on his own, nobody can talk to him, he's not accountable to anyone, you can't ask him questions, he does whatever he wants, I believe that this will be a dangerous path to actually want to work on. This will actually be putting yourself in a very tight corner, because when such a man does something, you cannot really be a helper, you cannot really contribute, because he's most likely not going to pay attention to whatever you would have to say, and he's going to do things on his own because he doesn't want to be accountable to you, because marriage is also about accountability. You have to be accountable to each other. So if already as a single person he hasn't learned how to be accountable, it's going to be very difficult. I'm not saying all of this to say that you have to look for a perfect person, no. But I believe that there are some basic things that really do matter that we have to work on before we get married, so that we don't become a burden unnecessarily to our spouse. So even you listening to me, if you can relate to some of these things, you don't fear God, you don't submit to authority, you're a woman of your own, nobody can talk to you, you don't listen to advice, then you know that these are things that you want to begin to work on. Because the same way I'm saying don't marry a man who is like this, the men will also understand I don't want to marry a woman who is like that. So this is just to say, please work on yourself. It starts with you. If you don't work on yourself, it's going to be difficult for you to identify these traits and know that these are red flags that you should avoid. Okay, that's even a topic for another day, but I do hope that this helps. There are probably other things as well. If you know any other thing that will be a no for you, put it in the comments. I'm not saying look for, there are some things that you can manage, because definitely you can easily work on, but I'm saying that these things for me, they are very important stuff that any man should begin to work on before he decides to settle down. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that this helps. Don't forget to share this with someone, and I will talk to you in the next one. Before I go, if you haven't yet subscribed, what are you waiting for? Click on that subscribe button and on the notification bell right beside it, so you get to be notified anytime I post new videos like this. Bye for now.